The benefits of working from home today.
Yeah, you're responsible for kids, and then they put a
That's
hula
fun,
hoop
yeah.
around you. But we're talking about. I'll let Andrew introduce the topic, and then Andrew honestly
I don't
just ask us
remember what we're
questions.
talking about.
I
Oh my
do.
God.
Okay, is this
Okay,
the right
Colby.
topic? I think we're talking about how to set a budget.
Yeah,
So
how to
yeah,
choosing a starting budget.
yeah. So we're gonna talk about three things. Where's the goddamn notes, guys? We're so organized, as you can tell. But there's three
How to
topics
choose
we're
a
gonna
starting
cover.
budget,
Yeah,
how to distribute
your
a
budget.
budget
Yeah,
across whatever campaigns you feel like you need to run
yeah.
for that client. And then once you have
How to
all that
scale the
budget
budget.
distributed, yes, how to scale it effectively.
Okay. I can start with this, and then Colby and Sloan, our good friend, that it will hopefully
If
keep Colby alive. If Colby's alive by the time I'm done talking, can
It's going to be a
add, and then
very
Andrew.
productive day of work. I can tell you that.
Yes. Okay, so how do you choose your budget? Okay, this one's actually interesting and kind of controversial or kind of thing because people always have the hardest time. What's yours? What's my starting budget? What's my starting budget? Blah 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 blah. Okay, I have an opinion on this, and with the brands I've worked with, in a sense, like the brands I usually work with spend like $1 million, $2 million a month on Facebook, and then they'll spend a significant amount on Google. Some spend up to like 3, 4, 5 million. But then again, what I found the ratio, if you're running Facebook or if you have a brand and you're just starting Google and you've never run Google before, start with 5 to 10% of your Facebook budget. Right. The ratio that I found that works really well between Facebook and Google is 1 to 5, where Facebook is 5 times as Google. You can get it up there, but 1 to 5 is a very safe ratio. So for example, if your Facebook budget is $100,000 a month, I would start it at Google at $20,000 a month right off the bat. That's a very safe number to start it at without being overly cautious or overly productive or like underperforming in that sense or being worried about underperformance. That's my opinion on if you have an existing budget essentially or an existing brand. Colby, were you gonna chime in there? I saw you on mute.
I was going to chime in. There's two ways to do it. I have a funny way of doing it where I'm just like, $30. Put $30 in there.
Yeah.
$30 non-brand, $10 brand. See where that goes. But and then you just watch the results and you can figure out what direction to go. But
I choked
if
up
you
my
want to
coffee.
take the
Sorry.
academic approach,
Sorry, Colby, go ahead.
I think you should go ahead and start, and it depends on what field you're in and whatnot. And we've kind of already had a conversation about this in the past, but you need to figure out what your acquisition cost should be. And the acquisition cost can be based on lifetime value. And then when you're looking at acquisition cost, you tell yourself, okay, well, how much money do I want to make in a month? So then you look at that acquisition cost and say, okay, maybe I need five clients. Say each client is $500, 5 times price, and you
I'm
need
gonna add
$2,500. $2,500. I
I feel like we should make like I feel like we should make notes on this and give it to everyone. We'll make notes on it, put a docket for you guys in there to kind of build it out. But I'm gonna build off of what Colby said because Colby said something really well. Because there's two tiers to that. Because there's like how many clients do I want in a month, and how much money am I willing to put in, and then there's another part: how much is the algorithm gonna take to get me those numbers? Anyways, so Colby's like 100. Let's just say your acquisition cost is 150, and the algorithm needs what was it? 30 guys? 30, right?
We're using like a lead gen for this
We're just
example,
30. Let's just use lead gen. Like we need 30 conversions for Google to be in like kind of an optimized state, right? So if we're talking $150 for a lead, you need 150 times 30 because if you're running manual, you're fine. Then you don't need it. But if you want to start optimizing and the Google start doing the bidding, then you need 30 times that. The other caveat there is you gotta go figure out your CPCs. People overlook that when they're thinking of budget. But if it's $150 and you have it's like CPCs to conversion rate to qualified leads to all that. So you gotta.
Good to share. We're gonna need to blur it out. But I just did this for a client, and let me show you guys what I did.
While Colby's doing that, I'm gonna finish my thought. So you gotta consider CPCs what's your conversion rate? Like after how many clicks is it gonna lead to a lead? And you just want to start with industry benchmarks. Go Google them, ask ChatGPT, whatever, ask GPT, what's your industry benchmark? Use that, probably increase it by like 20-30% because you're not gonna get that right off the bat. Those are optimized numbers, right? And those will be your CPLs. And then depending on that, increase it to like 30 times 30, and you want to do that. And that's the budget you want to start off with.
I've done I've done that method, but I've done it based on like last 180 days data
Yeah.
instead of industry benchmarks too. Just because I think a lot of the time, if you're trying to use industry benchmarks and your account metrics are way off from that, like there's just no way. And so I feel like a lot of times if you're really just like starting from nowhere and you don't know where to start, just look back like 180 days and do that like CPC to conversion rate and just average those over your last 180 days and then do the math from those.
But yeah, so I'm gonna toss a curveball and then we'll get to Colby's example just because we're in the train of thought. Because you're talking about a scenario where they have data 180 and then you can like attribute like, oh, I want to run this budget, right? What would you do with a new account? And you're like, I have no budget, Andrew. I'm the client. I need to figure out what budget to start with. Give me like a number, give me some thresholds, blah, blah, blah. How would you go about that?
Yeah, I feel like the only way that you can really do that is just industry benchmarks, because you have to start somewhere, and then depending on what data you're getting over like the first 30 days of how those campaigns are performing, then you can probably readjust and reallocate budget. But that kind of gets into the next point a little bit more. But
I would, and then Colby, you can share that nice screen you had shared and showed us everything going on. Your trade.
And then I showed you all my other things, and people will be surprised to know. I actually listen to music sometimes. So.
But I was gonna say to Andrew's point. Yeah, to Andrew's point, like look at the industry benchmark and inflate them. Don't take them for word, make them worse, and then use that as your baseline.
Thank you.
Because people post, because people will post the good. That's it's usually their best version of it. That's not industry benchmark. That's people's good version of it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I always deduct and do worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
And so again,
I always do like realistic, conservative, and whatever the word for good is. Guys, let me
outcome, positive. English is my first language.
Realistic,
but I'm still not
optimistic.
Good at it.
There we go.
Yes. See, look at you. Hold on here. I'm just learning how to use a computer. You press that button, and then you can go ahead and press other buttons. And then
Colby, wait, go back. I want to see all your trade secrets, the drive and all that. Anyways, we got to blur all that out.
I'm starting to, honestly, the only thing we really need to blur out is just the client name. But I wanted, so with this client, they don't have a big budget. They just knew that they could spend $3,000. Now you can follow this type of idea, right? And so here you look and you see, so $3,000 budget. If our acquisition cost was $400, you could have 7.5 customers, right? And so the way we're looking at this is we look at the gross profit. It's a range between 30 to 50%. I just put both so they could understand. I thought about averaging it first. You can do whatever the heck you want. It's fine. Now, if you're wondering why I have the red and the green, it's because if your acquisition cost, in this case, with a $3,000 budget, that would afford you 5.6 customers. You know, math doesn't work that way, but just run with me here. You generate that much revenue. Ignore my yelling kids. And you would see that from a revenue perspective or profit perspective, you're basically generating $98 more than your budget. So you're getting in the green. And then on these like pessimistic, like lower margin items, you would see that you are generating less than the budget. So in this case, this wouldn't make sense. But I would still say to the client, in month one, don't be surprised if this is what you're going to get. You really need to just be ready for anything. And the first month is all about data capture and figuring out how you're going to dial in.
So what you've basically done is you've built out CAC targets the expectation of like what you can get per customer, and then the different thresholds, the ratios. My question to you is there like a baseline of your like when you're looking at the data? And I don't know this person at all or what they're saying, because you have your CPCs, you have their target CACs. Is there a base? Oh, I guess you do have a target CAC. Your 400 is your target CAC, but it's like a baseline where like this is what all the options like what you're like. Okay, this seems like something we can hit.
I'm on it. Like, I'll be honest with you. I just want to give the clients like attitude is just kind of like, hey, like I want to spend some budget on certain items. And to give a little more context, they had a bunch of items, but I limited the list because we had a limited budget. And with that, I wanted to make sure that we could maximize the number of SKUs that we'd be going after. I picked SKUs that had a lower AOV, so it'd be more possible for us to get customers. Because if we're not getting any customers, we're not making any revenue. If we're not making any revenue, we can't justify continuing to spend. So we want not the cheapest AOV items. This is like a higher AOV item, but it's the cheapest of their high AOV items. And I'm hoping I can sell these to eventually create a world where we're going to generate a return that will justify the spend so they can spend more money. And so this is just what they should expect. And what I'm saying to them is in the first month, I just want to do data capture. I just want you to see what things could look like. And I want them to understand that, you know, if you're selling an item that's like $1,500 or something, it still might cost $500 to acquire that customer. And that's with an optimized, with everything optimized. So in the first month, like I honestly think it could be even more in the red. And you just have to grind it out. What I think happens to many small businesses is they are probably like in this area, they run their campaign to maybe like $300 or $400. They see no results, and they're just like, you know what, Google Ads doesn't work for me. And it's just because they haven't spent
Google
enough
Ads.
to
Yeah,
learn.
I get your point, because I've had to deal with another client like that. Google Ads, whenever you launch campaign or you try to build it out, expect 3 to 4 months bare minimum to get things in a steady state, honestly. Because before that, it just starts fluctuating up and down. Sometimes you'll have like 2 really good weeks that'll drop. You have to course correct quite a bit in the early stages, and then eventually you get into a steady state. But yeah,
For the love of
okay.
God, don't watch a
Move-
day and think everything's over.
Yeah, watch
from-
over week patterns, month over month.
Yeah.
What Colby said. I'm gonna keep this focused onto the next part of the conversation. Colby, you can stop sharing now, so we can look at our pretty faces. I forgot what the next part of our topic is: how to distribute budget. Okay, I love this topic, and I have a lot of opinions on how people distribute budget and where the budget needs to go at what stages. But I'm gonna do case scenarios, and whoever wants to take a dab at it first can. I'll ask you guys, then I'll give my opinion too. So the first case scenario is it's a brand new account. What are you doing?
Putting $800,000 into brand.
Exactly. Surprisingly, I agree with that. Well, not 800,000, but towards brand, in the sense like I would put a solid, if you have some brand presence and you have a brand new Google account, I would put a solid 30-40% towards brand for the short term. And the only reason I would do that is to get some data into the account, conversion data, because Google optimizes towards data, right? It needs to recognize the customer. And what better way for the account to start getting customer data than people searching for your brand, building that brand. And once you have that, it's pretty easy afterwards. You can start adding your non-brand and layering in, pulling back from that. But then I have an opinion on brand. But Colby, go on. I'm going to let you finish because you started with $85 million towards brand for
honestly,
Colby Doyle.
Colby Doyle Co. Colby Corp.
Yeah, Colby Corp.
People like to call it. No, like I don't think I actually disagree with that. I think if it's established, I feel like I probably put like 10 to 20% in brand and then just start chasing non-brand. I like to really get my feet wet non-brand and just start to figure out where we're going to get some traction.
I agree.
So, and I just, go and watch search term data, cast a wider net, and then I just start snip until we find what works.
And we can make a video on this, how to do Google Ads without guesswork. And actually, we can do it next week. That'll be good. But at the start, I like to do like 10, literally like 10, 15, maybe the 15% towards brand. 10% towards remarketing, depend on the type of remarketing I'm doing and if I have the context, and everything else towards non-brand. Because the thing about non-brand terms, they're very valuable. It's data that's just staring you in the face because it tells you exactly what people are searching for when they click on your ad. So it tells you if you're even portraying the right image for the product, right? And then if you are getting relevant clicks, it's telling you that, okay, either people are buying or they're not buying. So it's telling you a story like, okay, you have interest, but people aren't buying. So what does that tell you? Is there something wrong with the landing page? Is there something wrong in my pricing? Is the competition way better than? Is there an offering better? So you can reverse engineer that. How well you're not. I love to say like how well your non-brand does is like the baseline of how good your business setup is essentially. Because if you
and
have
you just need to bob and weave with it, right?
Yeah.
Like you get that data and you learn, and then that's what's going to tell you what you need to.
You need to course correct. Because there'll be some search terms that you'll look at and you're like, this makes no goddamn sense, but it's converting, and you'll just be like, oh, okay. And then you can leverage that and like because you'll see angles you've never seen in there. Like, oh, who would have thought that this would have converted? And then you can leverage that data, like, oh, okay, this works. Let me just adjust my landing page a little bit or something towards that. To that. And then if there's like a certain topic, let's just say Colby selling, I'm gonna find something very obnoxious. Notepads. Actually, no, I'm gonna give a real example.
Skateboards.
I'm selling big bulk coffee.
Yeah, let's
Colby's
do big bulk
coffee corp.com.
Yeah, let's just say Colby's selling big bulk coffee org or whatever, and then in his coffee he has a random ingredient that people look for or really well. It's just he's like it's a matcha coffee, but Colby's just trying to present it as coffee. I don't even know if matcha coffee is a thing, but people end up searching for a matcha coffee, and there's matcha coffee or there's like coffee for whatever benefit matcha has. Let's just say, does matcha have digestion benefit? I don't know, but we're gonna say matcha has coffee for digestion, and then Colby's coffee, matcha coffee does that. Now you have two angles you can play with. Colby's matcha coffee is one angle, and then coffee for digestion is another angle, right? So now you have two different angles, so you can just one lander here, one lander there, and you can target both those different angles. And as that data comes in, you can build landings, product pages specifically for those unique angles, and then just go after. Because I love the rule of 80-20 here. And this conversation just steered away from budgets, but I love the rule of 80-20, but we'll just go with it because it just flows. I love the rule of 80-20 here because when you go look at your search terms, 80% of your conversions will come from like 2, 3, 4 search terms. Like they're very generalized, very specific, same type of search terms. And people always are like, some are like, we have to change that. We have to go after. No, freaking focus on those search terms. Go look at the remaining 20%, figure out what else is working really well, and launch a separate ad, a separate product, or separate idea or whatever, and go after them. And then don't ruin what's already working. Expand out of it. Right.
That's the thing. And I think that's the thing with budget. It's just like as simple as the conversation goes. I think the rule is almost always 80, like 80% of your budget, or sorry, 80% of your performance is going to come from like 20% of those efforts. And you need to put yourself in a position where you can focus on what is working for non-brand, and then try to isolate it and then jam as much budget there as possible. And remember that you as the brand or maybe the client or whatever, ultimately or often think that they know the most about their brand. But as you run an ad and market, you might start figuring out that people think of your brand differently, they're searching differently, and you need to lean into that. Don't think you know better than them, and don't think that one product that doesn't sell well should, and keep it's hopeless. You got to do what supports.
I'm a strong believer in bending towards like the customer's needs, because it's staring you in the face. And people are telling you what they want. Just go freaking do it. Collect your paycheck, bro. Stop. People get stuck in like, no, my brand represents this. No, your brand represents who's buying.
Yeah, I think, those kinds of conversations are just so important, because you have like so much agency as the media buyer or the agency or freelancer or whatever, to try and help these clients and these businesses understand like how their customers are actually resonating with them. Because I've had so many conversations with clients that tell me this is my ideal customer, and then I look into all their information and it's not like, it just isn't.
It's not the case at all. At all. I agree with that very much.
Yeah, like your established business, you should be doing research off of like your first party data rather than, I don't know. I think you could go out there and spend so much money to have some agency define like all these avatars for you that are so inaccurate, and they just use ChatGPT to make them, and it's fake. It's honestly just like a lot of BS, right?
I agree. I agree. Okay, so that's a good.
So once we have like a good kind of budget foundation in place, whether that's from just a totally from scratch account or an account with actual data in it, how do you guys kind of typically go about
building the structure out and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, and then just making sure that your budget's distributed effectively. And I think part of that's like just still, again, like budget distribution still kind of falls under that 80-20 rule in most cases. But
I think we can do a whole video on starting campaigns from zero and then building them up and how do it. I have a formula I follow step by step every time I get handed a large account, because I'm very data focused in the sense I look at what's converting, what's not. Like, for example, I won't launch search campaigns before I launch my shopping campaigns, and I see what's working in the shopping data, right? So if I see like cold terms, like there's always going to be some exceptions, like, oh, this one's converting like 3 times better at like 2 times less CPA, above, set my threshold off, wait till I have enough search. Why is this little blend up here just poking out? It's weird. But I'll look at that and then I'll use those search terms as my gateway towards launching my search campaign and expanding out. And then I'll go back. I won't launch YouTube until I have enough shopping and search data, because I can go into the insights of these individual campaigns and look for audiences in there.
Ooh, let's redirect it that way, because I think that's good. It's like talking about what the different platforms you use, and I think you're just saying it is that start focusing on search, and that's your budget distribution, and start going well there before you go into the top of funnel on the top of funnel platform.
I think start small. I think start small always, just to collect enough data at one individual data points. Because if you distribute it too much, then you're not going to have enough, and you'll be stuck waiting for enough data to collect. Like, if don't just split it up between like 4 or 5 different campaigns trying to figure it out. And then, does that answer the question? I don't even know. I kind of went on a tangent or randomness. I'm just gonna wait here.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think just because I know we wanted to kind of touch on like once you have kind of your initial budgets
how
decided
to scale.
on. Well, that and how to like kind of continue distributing that while you're optimizing, because there is that period between starting and scaling where you're really just trying to figure out what the hell even works.
Yeah. So are you talking post figuring out what works? How do we get out of that?
No, I'm talking about figuring out what works and how we're distributing budgets during that kind of optimization time. And I guess kind of it's just a stupid cop-out answer of it depends most of the time. But
yeah, it does. By the way, if you ever meet someone and they have an exact answer for you for your business, run. The correct answer is it depends.
Yeah.
If they give you
that's my favorite
numbers,
rule of thumb either.
If they give you exact numbers, figures, or whatever, run the opposite direction. They don't know what they're talking about. The correct answer is depends, and they'll hit you with because of this, this, and this. No, you can't give an exact answer. If they're giving you exact answers, they're lying through their teeth. Anyways, but
or maybe they are psychic
and can predict the future. But anyways, to Andrew's point, it depends. It depends. It very heavily depends. It very heavily depends on your demographic too. For example, I have a client selling leather belts, and they're like $100 plus. Their demographic is old, 35, 40 plus people. These guys click search more than shopping. So I launched search campaigns, and now my search is doing better than my shopping. So I'm going to put more money towards the search
Yeah, do what the data tells you to do.
Exactly. It depends. Come hire us, guys. We say they have right answers. Anyways, and now, Colby, you enjoying the soup, man?
I'm getting a spoon-fed toy.
I feel like she's just spilling it all over you. The spoon at an angle. Okay, last one. Scaling. Who wants to go at it first?
Let's do the scaling conversation. And with the scaling conversation, I think the general rule is if you see something that's going well, very often the rule is by scale by 20% each week.
Yeah.
But
well,
like realistically,
as long as
you can kind of
before you do each week, I would do a 20% week. Look at how it performed. If it did shit, then obviously don't keep scaling that and make adjustments.
I'm gonna make it even more confusing and be like, look at your conversion cycle. If you're doing a 20% scale and your lag is 21 days, you're gonna see shit results for 21 days.
Oh yeah, that's a really important distinction. Let's say scale by your conversion, conversion.
I have a rule. I think I scale every 2 to 3 times my conversion lag, depending on how long it is. So like if it's 3 days, I'll scale every 6 to 9 days. If it's 2 days, every 4 to 6 days, like that. And I'll only scale by like 15 to 20%. And it also depends on the client's threshold for pain. If they have the threshold for pain, then I might even double, triple the budgets. But then again, set the expectation it's going to look like shit for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, if you don't do it in that those smaller increments, just expect a bigger variance. Because when I'm getting aggressive, I don't always do 10 to 20%. Sometimes the client's also like, hey, we need to spend $1 bajillion in the next 5 days, and I'm just like, okay.
I've had to do that. Just like I had a client that
budget to a jillion,
10,000 to just 27,000. Just do it. I was like, Andrew, you remember that?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Surprisingly, it worked. I was like, goddamn, did not see that coming. But yeah, I think there's 2 ways to scale: horizontally and vertically. Vertically being just like the one we talked about, doubling up and just increasing budgets in your individual campaign. Vertically means, or horizontally means, going into different campaigns, search, YouTube, and all the other stuff. But yeah,
targeting. I heard a Facebook marketer talk about how I think it was Jeff Foxwell. Jeff Foxwell, is that his name? Andrew Foxwell? One of the
Jeff Foxworthy?
Yeah, no, so I think his name's actually Andrew. But anyways, yeah, I always get it mixed up with the so you're a redneck. But yeah, there's the horizontal and vertical scaling. If you talk about horizontal scaling, is going through the different targeting types and whatnot. But I think that exactly works with what you're saying.
I feel like you can also scale horizontally through products and stuff though too, because going back and just kind of touching on finding those potential product or service opportunities that you might not have known about before. If you started in one area and you're starting to see all these search terms that are converting for this random frickin' thing, then building out campaigns to kind of focus on that so that you can scale horizontally that way too.
Oh yeah.
Or just everybody just be in complete silence after my point.
I got distracted by someone's message, sorry. But no, I agree. I was listening. Maybe I'm just saying I agree so I don't have to say anything else. Who knows?
That's how good my point was. It just stunned everyone into silence.
Your point is good. And I had a point and then I forgot about it. And then I just kind of left society and this world for a few minutes there. But what I was gonna say was that it all just comes down to segmentation. It's you just find the circle that's doing good and you just push it up. That's all it is. Just find the bucket. Find the bucket.
There's a circle here and you're overlapping. That's what?
The Venn diagram?
No. Okay. This is completely off topic, and if we want to keep this in the video, it's fine. We were doing it was an engineering class when I was in school, and it was like an electrical course, and we were doing like we were getting tested, and one of my friend was getting tested, and our PA didn't know anything either, and he's like, there's a circle here, there's a circle here, the overlap is the answer. And the guy just looks at him, and they look at each other, and I'm just in the background dying, like, what the hell is he saying? And he just nod head, and they're like, yeah, good answer. I was like, what? And that's what Colby was doing. Segmentation, overlap, like circle here, overlap. That's the answer. I love it.
Gosh.
Beauty. It's Mozart.
I love it. Sweet.
So moral of the story about Google ad budgets and everything that has to do with them is it depends. Like literally every
depends.
other freaking PPC answer in the history of the universe.
Well, unless you're like a
Depends.
guru and then you're like, yeah, comments on my thing so I can send you something that probably doesn't even work, but I will get engagement for it.
And to be honest, this is why there's just so many. Why if you're on LinkedIn or listening to us or listening to other people, there's so much different information because not because it's bad information inherently, but because every scenario is just so different, and that's what makes this job so freaking hard. Sometimes is like sometimes it's just everything just depends.
Yeah. But I think if I've noticed any patterns, you have these circles. But no, seriously, it is a segmentation. Segmentation is always seeming to be the name of the game. And if I'm talking to someone who's just starting, I think if you're starting from scratch, focus where your conversion rate is going to be the highest, the bottom of the funnel, and then make your way up.
Yep. Good chat.
Let me
come buy our course for $2 million. You all are going to get rich and famous. Move to Dubai.
And watch our very low production value videos.
Don't buy courses, guys. Everything is on
$800,000.
Yeah. Don't buy courses, guys. Everything is on YouTube unless it's from us. Then buy all the $1 million worth of stuff we sell. We sell nothing.
Yes. Yes. Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, so the problem with this client is everything went to shits 2 weeks ago in the sense that everything was fine and then revenue started dropping off just out of the blue. They changed nothing